All right, I'll start. What the heck?
Tweet it all.
I can't tweet from here. Okay. So I'm Chris Bourg. I'm the director of libraries at MIT. As Anne was talking about the number 13 and what it reminds her of, I have to admit, it was reminding me of Jesus and the disciples. It's a little weird to sit in the middle of the table because that's not who I see myself as. I also don't see myself as Judas. But you know what? I'm willing to play Thomas. And I often do. So there's been, to my mind, a little too much agreement so far the last day and a half. So I'm going to throw out, right before lunch, sort of drop the mic, throw out some disagreement. So Sarah, I'm going to say we need to, instead of move from talk to action, I think as leaders it has to be talk and action. And I know you don't disagree, but what the heck. And so, and also, I'm gonna misquote Dan and say, to hell with pragmatism.
I think he said that.
Did he say that? Okay. He said, they quoted him before about to hell with search stats we collect for posterity. And I say, to hell with pragmatism, we're here for the public good. I'm also gonna say, leadership, I'm gonna now quote Hillary Clinton quoting Abraham Lincoln. Right, so I think as leaders, maybe we do need to have public positions and private positions, right? And what I mean by that is, I think that maybe the pragmatic part is really, it is. Of course, it's really, really important within our own institutions. We have limits, we have boundaries, and we have to inspire our staff to do what they can within those limited resources. But I think outside of our institutions, I think that it's our job, our challenge, to articulate sort of not just the value of an individual library on an individual campus, but the value of libraries as social institutions that contribute to the public good. I
shouldn't have let her go first.
These aren't droppable mics.
Now, what are we going to say? I don't know.
I'll go next. So as I thought about what was being said and Dan's writings before, and thinking about collections, both at the institutional level and at the collective level, three things come to mind that I think are really important as we move forward. One is openness, whether it's legitimate or not. It's playing a much bigger role in terms of providing access. Think WikiLeaks, think Sci-Hub, as well as thinking the archive and Russian hacking and all of that kind of thing that's going on. Two, I think that disciplinary public goods are at risk, whether they're taken over by commercial entities such as SSRN or whether they're at potential or real risk. We spent some time at the last Ivy Plus directors meeting talking about what's going to happen to the digital Sloan Sky observations. But you could also maybe question what will happen ultimately with Internet Archive, other kinds of content that are out there. Then the third area is a whole bundle of issues around authority and authenticity and impact, which is being challenged. You just have to look at the presidential election today. Just saying it and saying it often is good enough for some people. There's also
Wrong. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Say it one more time, Chris.
Sorry, I couldn't read it.
I think there's also the issue of wisdom of crowds, or information corruption or information manipulation, the timing of access to material, to information, timed to have such a major impact on things. The rise of the importance of fact-checking. These are all things that can play into what the research libraries do moving forward. And Lorcan talked about reputation management and that full string of things that publishers are doing. I think we also need to really focus on reputation manipulation and the gaming of systems by even by the individual themselves or by those outside of it. So these things all swirl around in my head as we think about collections and moving forward.
I'm going to talk a little bit more personally. So I write, like all my colleagues, my fellow directors write letters of appeal for money to get people to give money to the libraries. And we usually say, here are some really great things we're doing, and you know, this is what makes Duke distinctive, and we have this, and we're really great. And this last letter, which is just going out now, is all about borrow direct. And it's, you know, at first I was like, wait a minute, you know, I can't say, like, we don't have everything. This is not good publicity. They're going to say, like, Duke is weak, Duke is lacking somehow. And then I realized, no, and in fact, I wrote the letter that way, that no research library can be comprehensive. No one can have everything. And here are our partners. And we are now part of this larger group of powerful research institutions. And everyone who comes to Duke, your kids, you know, you as alumni, have access to this broader world. So I realized I kind of talked myself out of a little panic attack there for a minute, but it really signified kind of a change in thinking and how we communicate with donors. So I'm going to say it again. Since time immemorial, since ancient times, mankind has wanted to do cooperative collection development, at least since the 70s and 80s, in the conspectus. Farmington Plan. Oh, yes, before that. Conspectus. And there are a lot of reasons why that didn't work out, but in essence, the reasons for the RLG conspectus, RLG was made up of many of the same institutions that are part of Ivy Plus. Those reasons, you know, we won't go into, but at this moment, we have the motivation, the incentives, the determination, the technology, the staff, and a kind of the mindset to really make a difference in all this. So I'll say one last thing, which is about the Triangle Research Libraries Network, TRLN. We have been around for, 80, 90 years, and cooperative collection development is a big part of what we do. We're blessed by geography. There are 4 institutions, all very close together. Very different institutions, not like the Ivies. And supposedly, we have to look at this figure again, but supposedly we have a 71% print uniqueness rate. So we've tried very deliberately not to overlap in a lot of ways. It doesn't mean we don't collect in certain areas, but we rely on each other for more specialized materials. So in recent years, TRLN has been trying to, since so much of our collections budget goes into e-resources, trying to crack that nut in terms of cooperation. So how can we save money and be better stewards as a group the same way we did with print? And that's a really, really hard thing to do. We had a pilot that involved Oxford University Press. That's gotten off to a fairly good start, but you know, there's still these crazy rules about, yes, you can buy 1 print copy, but you have to pay for 4 electronic. You know, I mean, you can pay less, but you still have to pay. You know, I don't get why we can't really come up with some ways to save money in e-resources the same way we've been such good stewards in print. So I'll leave it at that and thank everyone for your thoughts.
So I wanted to talk about 2 points. One is really what a point that Tom Hyrie made that stuck with me, which is I hear from my president and provost, they praise the Ivy Plus libraries and the work that we're doing. And then they'll say, but we're still competing around special collections. We're still distinctive at special collections. And so that's really interesting. And I hadn't really paused a second to think about that as, well, why should we be also competing in that area? Obviously, our collections will remain distinctive because they are, in fact, distinct objects. But where does the collaboration look like there? And at what point do we start to explore that much greater than we already have? I think the second point I wanted to make is, as you saw when we shared our Yale data, it wasn't the most comfortable thing in the world to do. Yet it is absolutely necessary for us to do. And so I hope maybe it inspires others to take that chance and put that out there, because, going back to the German material, if we all have similar patterns and we hit a point of resource constraint, another economic downturn or something, the danger is we're all going to respond similarly and we take a step back. And if we all take that step back, we've just harmed our ecosystem. We've just harmed our comprehensive record that we are trying to work together to create. So if we aren't aggressive in putting out that information and sharing it, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it might not tell the story we wish we could be telling, I think we have to do it. We have to be brave and do that so that we don't make mistakes as we go forward that will really harm future generations who are working with our collections.
And yeah, after that, what does one do? But one of the things that I think about is how much time do we spend solving the problems of the past, the ones that we're most comfortable with, that we understand the best, the management of our print collections, and what are we doing thinking about the future. And so that was one of the questions that was raised about, well, could we move on to thinking about the management of our digital collections as well as the printed ones. The second variation on that for me, we talk about flipped classrooms, we talk about flipped journals, we talk about the inside-out libraries, a kind of flipping libraries. And I think seriously about whether we need to be flipping how we allocate our resources, because again, so much is devoted to the management of our legacy collections and our the way in which we handle that when we see diminishing use. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think collective collections are so important, is that I see that we might have an opportunity to engage in collective management and collective ownership of collections that will allow us to free up resources. Again, it's not that I don't think those print collections are important. I think they're very important. And in fact, one of the things that I would like to reallocate funds to is more, I will crassly call it marketing of those collections. It's not just about making them discoverable, but it's really about promotion. I think we have to fight much more for attention in this world. And so we have these assets which could be considered by people move around, so I can't look at them anymore. But by those oh no, there you are, David. Those sharp provosts, who are saying no, that's really costing a lot of money. Why are we hanging on to those? But we really, and that gets back to what people have said about telling a different narrative about the library and having us having people have a wider understanding of the value of libraries. And if we're able to do that, then I think we're able to realize Chris's dream of the libraries as the public good and the advancement of knowledge that is all so important for the people for whom the collections are a service.